May 17, 1987. The USS Stark, an Oliver Hazard Perry class guided missile frigate, is transiting through the Persian Gulf, providing escort to oil tankers going through the region. This escort has been deemed necessary due to the ongoing Iran-Iraq war that had been raging for 7 years. Both sides of the conflict have begun to target tankers in order to choke the other economically. On this day, the Stark will get caught in the crossfire. On the evening of May 17th, at approximately 2000 hours, the Stark was warned of an Iraqi aircraft that was approaching from the northwest. The aircraft had been identified by an American E3 AWAC. The aircraft was officially identified as a Mirage F1, though there is some belief that the aircraft was actually a Falcon 50 civilian airliner that had been converted for military use. Regardless, the Iraqi jet was 200 nautical miles away. The appearance of an Iraqi jet was not an uncommon occurrence. Iraq sent numerous aircraft down the Persian Gulf to attack Iranian tankers. The Iraqis were known to blind fire at vessels without confirming their target, and their primary weapon was the Exocet missile. These anti-ship missiles are French-built and have a range of 38 nautical miles when launched from the air. The missiles are known to be effective. Argentina has successfully used them to sink the HMS Sheffield and the Atlantic Conveyor during the Falklands War 5 years earlier. The Iraqi aircraft flying ever closer to the Stark today is armed with 2 of these potent missiles. At 20:55, nearly an hour after first being identified, the Iraqi aircraft is now only 70 nautical miles away. A few minutes later, at 21:02, the Stark detects that the Mirage has painted them with its radar and locked on for a few seconds. The Stark's on-duty watch officer declines to warn the aircraft that they are an American ship. At 21:05, the Mirage turns toward the Stark. This change in direction is not detected by the Stark's crew, and the jet begins to close the distance. At 21:07, the Mirage fires its first Exocet from 22.5 nautical miles away. A lookout on deck spots the missile fire and relays the information. The Mirage's change in direction is now noted and a warning is sent, although it is too late. Captain Brindle is called for as well, but can't be found. At 21:08, the second Exocet is launched from 13 nautical miles away. The Stark's weapons control officer places the ship's Phalanx Sea-Wiz into standby mode and the ship's chaff launchers are readied, but they are not armed in time, and the Phalanx was still in standby mode and unable to engage when the first missile struck at 21:09. The warhead failed to detonate, but the missile tore through the Stark and the missile's fuel ignited inside the ship. Stark quickly went into general quarters, which was followed by a missile inbound message as the second Exocet approached. The second missile struck just 8 feet away from where the first one had hit, and this time the warhead detonated, leaving a 15-foot hole in the side of the ship just above the waterline. The Stark's missile defense systems are knocked out and the ship can't return fire. The Iraqi jet would return to Iraq unharmed. The Stark, on the other hand, was now in the fight of its life. The missile strikes had killed or incapacitated over a quarter of the Stark's crew, and the fires ignited by the first missile are now burning at over 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The surviving crew immediately goes to work sealing the ship to prevent the fire spread, as firefighting efforts prove nearly fruitless against the intense heat that is now weakening the structure of the ship, and help is over 5 hours away. The most direct threat is the rising temperature in the ship's missile magazine. A detonation here would doom the ship. Gunner's Mate 3rd Class Mark Samples would take up the task of preventing that by using a hose line to spray down the missiles in order to keep them cool. He would remain at his post for approximately 12 hours before he was relieved. The next major threat was water rushing into the gaping hole on the Stark's port side and causing the ship to list. Captain Brandel ordered the starboard side of the ship to be flooded in order to keep the port side hole above water. This successfully kept the Stark from taking on any more water. After hours of fending for itself, the Stark would finally receive assistance for its exhausted crew when the destroyers USS Waddell and USS Cunningham arrived along with several tugs from Bahrain. Later that following morning, the fires were under control and the Stark was towed to Bahrain for repairs. The attack had killed 37 sailors and left 21 injured. The Stark would have emergency repairs done in Bahrain before sailing home to the United States in early August. Extensive repairs at the cost of $143 million would be completed over the next 18 months. Its first overseas deployment since the attack would occur in August of 1989 when she would sail to Europe to take part in exercises with NATO. The Navy was deeply concerned about the success of the Iraqi attack. It was determined that proper procedures were not followed. Among them, the ship's onboard chafe should have already been armed and ready long before the Mirage presented a threat, and the Phalanx Sea-Wiz system should have been on alert, not on standby. This led to a letter of reprimand to Captain Glenn Brindle, the loss of his command, and a demotion to commander. Iraq also issued a formal apology for the incident and took full responsibility for their pilot's actions. Iraq claimed that it was a case of mistaken identity and that their pilot believed the Stark to have been an Iranian tanker, though many cast doubt on this claim. It's important to recognize the efforts of the Stark's crew. Their damage control kept the Stark from sinking and in many cases was done at great risk to their own lives. As President Reagan said shortly after the attack, they were ordinary men who did extraordinary things. The sacrifice of the sailors who were killed will live on in the annals of the history of the United States Navy, and their names are listed in the description below. Please take the time to read their names, and I'll see you on the next one.